Welcome to Risk Roundup. While the very nature of human mind and the science of individual human intelligence is difficult to understand, there is an intense effort going on to build collective human intelligence powered by connected computers and machine intelligence. As the efforts are towards creating collective human intelligence on the back of collective machine intelligence, the collective human brain that is forming will likely have unmatched ability to design, modify, and build even better forms of intelligence in the coming years. There is a great hope that since there will be likely no limits to collective machine intelligence, there will likely be no limits to intelligence and innovation, progress and advancement for humans. It is the collective human intelligence powered by machine intelligence that will help us create the worlds that never were in cyberspace, geospace, and space, in short referred to as CGS. So as we integrate human intelligence with massive machine intelligence, then our relationship with everything on Earth and beyond in cyberspace, geospace, and space enhances, amplifies, and fundamentally changes. The coming revolution and evolution of intelligence and the resulting fundamental transformation changes humanity's relationship to knowledge and information and raises profound implications for the future of the collective human experience and endeavors in cyberspace, geospace, and space. To discuss collective human intelligence further, I'm honored to welcome Professor Pierre Lévy to Risk Roundup. Professor Pierre Lévy, a fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, is a French philosopher, cultural theorist, and media scholar who specializes in the understanding of the cultural and cognitive implications of digital technologies and the phenomenon of human collective intelligence. Welcome, Professor Lévy. We are honored to have you on Risk Roundup.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm very happy to discuss these very important and interesting questions with you.
Thank you. So I'm really eager to have a discussion too. So let's start the discussion with the technology-powered evolutionary journey towards mutualistic NGIOA symbiosis, as we say. NGIOA means nations, it's government, industries, organizations, and academia. So knowing how to power collective human intelligence is perhaps one of the biggest questions we face today. Having said that, as we witness unprecedented advances in information communication, digitization technologies, along with convergence of technological advances in processing power, interconnectivity, data storage, high fidelity rendering, physics, simulations, natural language technologies, and so much more. What does these advances mean for collective human intelligence?
Yes, I think that the first thing that we have to understand is that it's not the first time in the history of mankind where we had a big revolution in communication. It was already the case at the time of the invention of writing. It changes everything. It allowed large-scale agriculture. It allowed the construction of the first states, the beginning of literature and science as we know it, and so on. There has been also a great revolution at the time of the invention of the printing press, and this allowed the industrial revolution, the rise of the nation states, new kinds of religions, and so on. So we are now again in a time of big revolution of communication, but it was not the first time. And we have also to understand that human cognition, human intelligence has always been collective. We are a social species, and all the social species have one kind or another of collective intelligence. In our case, in case of humanity, our collective intelligence is empowered mainly by language. Other animals can communicate, of course, but they cannot speak, they cannot ask questions, they cannot tell stories, they cannot have dialogues, and so on. So it is because we have the language that our species has developed such a powerful collective intelligence. Our species has an evolution that is not a biological evolution, but a cultural evolution. This cultural evolution is fueled by technical inventions, institutional inventions, economic inventions, cultural inventions, and it stays, it grows, it is recorded. We have a memory, a cultural memory. And that's the basis of our cultural evolution. Other species don't have this. So once this is said, today we have an augmentation of our symbolic manipulation ability that goes beyond the writing system that just help us to record symbols, or the printing press, or the traditional electronic media that just multiplies symbols. We can modify, transform very precisely symbols with the help of robots, with the help of software. So currently we have a new space, a new environment of communication that is ubiquitous. When you put some message on the web, it is at this place on this server, but at the same time it is everywhere. So this is a ubiquitous communication environment. Also, all the information, all the documents are interconnected. So there is one big space of information that is everywhere. And finally, as I said, we have a multitude of robots that we can command to transform all these symbols, all these messages, all this information. This is a situation that is completely new in the history of mankind. All our concepts and institutions are inherited from the previous era. Think about it. One generation ago, let's say 25 years, there was less than 1% of the human population that was connected to the internet. And today, it is more than half of the global human population that is connected to the internet. It's a huge revolution. And we are just at the beginning of this huge revolution. Sometimes we think that we're very advanced, but in 1, 2, 3 generations, they will look back at us and think, this was the prehistory of cyberspace. Okay, we are in the prehistory. Everything is still to be built.
Yes, to be defined and designed. You're absolutely right. I mean, this is just the very, very beginning. And you are right that, it is fundamentally going to transform everything. And today, individuals, if you look at the individuals or entities across nations, its government, industries, or organizations or academia, we all stand on the brink of a technological tsunami in cyberspace, geospace, and space. And this is fundamentally altering the way each component of a nation, individuals or any component of a nation, they work, live, communicate, and to another, within and across the nation's geographical boundaries. So in its scale, scope, and complexity, this technology revolution triggered transformation across cyberspace, geospace, and space is unlike anything NGI or humankind has experienced before in any of its prior technological revolutions. This is very, very different. So the speed of the current ideas, innovations, technology, and breakthroughs has no historical precedent and is fundamentally disrupting almost every component of a nation. And in addition, the breadth, depth, and the impact of these changes, it heralds the transformation of entire interconnected and interdependent systems of socialization, education, innovation, production, management, governance, and so much more. So, while there is no way to predict just how this technology revolution or evolution will unfold, one thing is clear, that the silos are breaking across nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia. So, what impact do you see because of the imminent breakdown in silos? How do you see it shaping the information and intelligence processes, and where do you see the intelligence evolutionary journey going from here?
Okay, it's it's very difficult to predict the future, but we can have a vision, um, or propose a vision. My vision is that all this computing power should not be directed towards the idea of artificial intelligence. It should be directed toward the idea of collective intelligence, of empowering individuals and groups and communities. All the techniques of artificial intelligence, like machine learning, deep learning, big data analytics, all these things are to be, of course, are to be developed, but put at the service of the people. Okay, the ultimate goal is to empower people and not to empower machines. Okay, we are going to control the machines. And I think that a lot of power of interpretation of flows of data is now in the hands of big governments, big companies. It should be in the hands of everybody. It's a little bit like the situation in ancient Egypt, where you had a small cast of scribes that was able to read and write, and they were at the top of the power. And the vast majority of the population, they were more or less slaves, and they were unable to read and write, and they were excluded from power. Today, it's almost the same. We have very big corporations or very powerful nation states that control the huge flow, the huge ocean of information, and they are able to extract knowledge from it, even with very crude tools. Don't be fooled by the buzzwords and so on. It's still not perfect, but they have the power to analyze and control the information, and the vast majority of people, they just give up their own information that they produce on the internet. I think what we should aim for is a situation where all this information that is produced by people, when they communicate, when they make transactions on the internet, when they use every device, they are constantly producing data. I think that this data, this information should come back to the people. They should be able to analyze, to understand, to have a representation of the working of their own collective intelligence. I think the next step in the cultural evolution is not just collective intelligence, because in a way we already have it, and it is already empowered by cyberspace. The next step is reflexive collective intelligence. We should be able to observe our own cognitive process, collective cognitive process, in order to improve it, to solve all the problems that confront us. So that's it. That is basically the cultural goal that we should be setting.
I hear your point. I think that's an excellent idea because individuals, the consumers, we, the individuals and consumers, we directly need to know what data we are generating on the, in the cyberspace and what we can learn from that, how we can improve. So what you are suggesting, the reflexive intelligence, I think it's an excellent idea because it would help individuals grow and evolve, and that would help them do things in much better way. And you are right that right now all these big data tools and analytics and everything is in the power, it's controlled by the large corporations and governments, and consumers directly, they don't have the tools available for them to reflect, for them to understand what kind of data they are generating, what can they analyze from that, what can they understand. So this reflexive intelligence you are suggesting, if we are able to achieve that, that would be really, really transformational for individuals, because the individual is the seat of intelligence, and we want to make sure that we all learn individually, so that if we learn individually, if we evolve our own intelligence, if we evolve that, then the collective intelligence, which will be much more powerful and much more stronger. And as you said in the beginning, from the beginning of times, our early knowledge sharing relied on speech and other social behaviors. However, over the years, with advances in technology, the social ecosystem is moving from geospace to cyberspace, and this shift in social ecosystem has augmented the capacity for collective intelligence with so many different tools. So if we are able to provide them the reflexive tool that
Like,
you are talking about, that would be transformational. And that, what stage are we? Are we any closer? Do we have that kind of capability at this point?
okay, so I think that currently, technically, we don't have this ability, but I'm working on this problem since a long time, and I'm thinking of a new kind of platform. You know, let's say first we have to think about the core values of this platform. That should be a kind of public service that could be very useful for the individual, for the citizens, but also for the organization, for the businesses, for the government, a general public service platform. I think that the core values of this general public service platform should be openness, transparency, and commonality. You know, the information, the data should belong to the public. All the data formats and the algorithms and the application that will be embedded in this public service should be open, like open source, okay? And the way it is managed should be transparent, because all this is going to give confidence, trust. If it's not transparent, if it's not open, there will be no trust. If it's not open, there will be no continuous improvement. And if it is not common, you are not going to improve the general situation of the population. This is the first thing. Then we should use all the technical advances that are at our disposal. It should be, of course, cloud-based, completely distributed. We should use machine learning and deep learning as completely as possible, because it's a very powerful and very useful technology. We should, of course, also use the blockchain to ensure that people can exchange contracts freely and safely. And finally, I would add a new technology that still does not exist, that I call deep meaning. So, because you have deep learning. Deep learning is a kind of simulation of the brain. Okay, we should add, but the brain is not the secret of human intelligence, because all the animals have brains, okay? And whales have bigger brains than us. It's not the size of the brain that is important. What is important in the human brain is that he can manage symbols, he can manage language. You cannot augment human cognition without augmenting its linguistic or symbolic ability. So I think that we should create a language, a writing system that is adapted to the new support of our communication and thinking that is computational. So we should devise a language that is at the same time like a natural language. We can say anything, but on the other face of it, it is also some kind of formal language that can be computed by the computers. And not only the syntax should be computable, but also the semantics. So if we use such a symbolic system, and if we use it as a kind of semantic coordinate system for all the data will be able to self-compute their semantic relationships. And we will be able to translate automatically not only from one language to another, but from one discipline to another, from one classification system to another, from one ontology to another. Everything will be able to communicate and to be computed automatically. That's my idea. I call it deep meaning because it will augment the natural language processing abilities. It will make very powerful databases. And it will add a new addressing layer in cyberspace. You know, you have the addressing of computers with the Internet Protocol. You have a universal addressing of data with the web. And I think that we should add a universal addressing of concepts. So, in a way, we already have a concept addressing system. This is natural language, okay? But the problem is that natural language cannot be computed automatically. You can deal with it mainly today. It's mainly done with statistical methods or with deep learning methods, okay? But if we are able to have a semantic code that is supple enough to express human thought, but is formal enough to be automatically computed, we have solved the biggest problem. So we are able to think reflexively because we have speech, we have language. We will be able to think collectively, reflexively, when our collective memory will be addressed by a language. So the new platform will be open, transparent, the content should be common, the content should be commons, really commons. We should use blockchain, deep learning, deep meaning, as I said, and then we will have a lot of functions. Function of data curation, data analysis, function of creation of all kinds of documents, of course, communication and collaboration, immersion in, augmented reality, virtual reality, connection with the Internet of things, connection with smart cities, and so on. So the dimension of immersion in the 3D space, the real space, And finally, transaction,
Yes.
like selling, buying, all these kind of things. So if we have abilities of creation, curation, communication, immersion, and transaction, we have everything in a
Yes.
way.
Yes, yes. No, I agree with you on that. And where your vision is going, I think that's what we need. And you discussed, a lot of important factors into your vision of the semantic web that we need to go forward towards. And you also, it seems, proposed a different model. Um, I was doing analysis of the work that you have done so far, and it seems you have proposed a different model called information economy meta language.
Yes.
So that seems to be groundbreaking, and I think it's going to be very, very fundamentally necessary for the vision that you just described. So, for the benefit of our global viewers and listeners, can you describe what these IEM, how this information economy meta language will enable collective intelligence, how it's going to be, how it is going to play a role?
Okay. So the big, well, let's be honest. It's complex. Okay. If you have a groundbreaking idea that is at the same time cultural and technical, it will be complex.
Yes.
So you have to think of an 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 object that is at the same time a language like French or English or Mandarin or Arabic. Okay, it's a language. And on the other side, it's an algebra. Okay, in the case of IEML, you have 6 variables and 2 operations, multiplication and addition. So it's a formal algebra. It's not an algebra that manipulates numbers. Okay, they are manipulating abstract variables that I represent by letters, but that mean ideas. Okay, so from the initial variables that each of one means something, you build more complex or more precise ideas only by using addition and multiplication. And it is recursive. You have several layers like this. And all the words that you create like this are interconnected by semantic relations. So I have a dictionary of IEML. I mean, it's not one word after the other. It is like groups of transformation between symbols, and you have a dense network of paradigmatic relations, of semantic relation between the words. Okay. And then you can use the words to build more complex topics, to create phrases, to describe facts, to describe theories, to describe narratives, and so on. And you can use all this linguistic expression to categorize data, or to categorize parts of documents, or to categorize a contract, for example, in the blockchain system, or to categorize everything, the functions of bots in an IoT system, and so on. So you'll have the whole digital memory that can be addressed by this language. The language works as a semantic coordinate system for the data and for the people and for the transaction and for everything that is recorded online. So the real invention is a linguistic invention, because you have at the same time a language and an algebra. Some people may say, but wait, this already exists. Chomsky told us that every language can be described by an algebra. This is a regular language. Levy does not invent anything. Okay. Chomsky said that you can represent the syntax of a language in a formal way by a regular language. Okay? It was an extraordinary achievement when he proved this. And it is one of the bases of the current development of programming languages and of the current computer science. But what I am adding here is a formalization not only of syntax, but of semantics, because the language is not limited to its syntactic part. Of course, you should combine phonemes. This is one thing, but you are also going to use language to say something, to make reference to real things, to convey ideas, concepts, and so on. And it is this that we should be able to code and manipulate automatically. So once you have a language that is at the same time an algebra, you can build a database that is also a language. And this is exactly the way the way the human mind is working. Because all the knowledge we have is physically encoded in our neurons, but virtually it is encoded in concepts by our language. And the thing is that the language in general is not something that is individual, it's something that is collective. It's something at the level of culture, and that's why we are able to discuss. Okay, so we have culturally a kind of cultural database. The semantic addressing system of which is a language. It's already the case. Now, what I am proposing is to do it technically at the level of cyberspace.
That's very interesting. No, I'm thinking how to use this IEML language that you have developed, how to use that effectively for risk management. Because I'm very curious about how the risk generated by the internet's enormous capacity to retrieve data and the potential exploitation of this risk data that is there in cyberspace, geospace, and space. How to identify that and how to translate that into a language, computer language, like how you have developed IEML.
Yes.
How to create the risk, meta language.
Okay.
That is what I have been thinking, because if you can create the risk meta language, then our ability to manage risk, irrespective of whether they are independent risk that impacts either in an individual or an individual entity, or if it's an interconnected, interdependent risk, if we have that ability, if we have that meta language for risk, we can probably, eliminate most of the risk from this world.
Okay, so I have been practicing data curation and let's say a kind of intelligence, technology intelligence, business intelligence, geopolitical intelligence, security intelligence for years now. I am using Twitter, I am using Scoopit, I am using Pinterest, I'm using a lot of platforms to do this data curation, and I gather collections of data on the topics that are interesting to me to understand the very complex world in which we live, and a world that is evolving very fast. Okay, so I said I am going to use IEML for my own purpose, for data curation, for my watch on the subjects that are interesting to me. Currently, on all these platforms that I am using, you categorize data by tags, or by hashtags, or by keywords, or things like this. You cannot organize a kind of metadata, okay, to organize your memory, the memory of the data. So what I have been doing in the last 3 months is to translate my tags into IEML. And then there is a system that automatically replace the natural language tags with the IEML tags. And then I have complete collections that are categorized in IEML. So this allows me to make better analysis of the data. I can compute all the semantic relations and the semantic proximity between data automatically. And I can project the data onto my tables of words that indicates the maybe causal relations between the data. I can test hypothesis. If I express my hypothesis in IEML, it extracts automatically the data that is categorized in the facts or in the variables of the theory and organize the data according to the great lines of my theory, of my hypothesis. It becomes very easy to analyze a lot of data. For a very simple reason, it is that the tags, the categories, the way your semantic metadata are not just anymore a chain of characters. They are concepts, and these concepts are automatically related, mutually related, and this relation is made automatically. So that's the way. So there will not be a risk, a risk meta language. There will be one single meta language, and in this meta language you can develop your special vocabulary as you want, because it is completely free. It's a language, you can say everything you want, and you can build the topics or the subject or the facts or the theory you want, because
Yes, and I hear you on that. But see, the challenge with this is across nations, there are so many different languages that are being spoken. Now, there are so many different cultural variation, which we have not integrated yet. We don't understand how, what is a risk in certain culture that is not risk in another culture, and how the actions, for example, people on on Facebook, every action they take, every like or dislike or every share or every decision that we see on the Facebook or any other social media, what does it mean in terms of risk? How to identify risk from that? Now, what if we build a blockchain based risk management framework, then it is probably going to be, from what you are suggesting, using the IEML in a blockchain based risk management framework. That is possible and doable, and that would help us develop that risk meta language, so to speak. But that would require enforcement of that particular framework by pretty much each and every individual across nations, and also each and every entity across nation. That means government, industries, organizations, and academia. Everybody would have to come on that framework. And then with the language that you have developed, we will be able to identify and manage the risk effectively. We will be able to understand it. And now that blockchain based capability that I hope that we are able to develop is that we will be able to manage not only the independent risk, but also the interconnected and interdependent risk, because for which we don't have any capability yet. And that would give us the capability. But this requires a huge effort across nations. Everybody has to be willing to come on that framework. Everybody has to be willing to use that, just like how everybody is using internet. We would need everyone to use that. And then if we are able to do it, then perhaps we will be, I was talking to a lot of decision makers, and they said if we are able to do that, then we would be able to manage almost 80-85% of the global risk. We won't be able to eliminate or effectively manage all 100%, but at least a major portion of the risk we will be able to effectively manage. So I'm very curious how to use this IEML language that you have developed and how to effectively take a step forward in managing the risk across our nation's geographical boundaries, irrespective of cyberspace, geospace, and space, and how to come up with that model that we can effectively build, because we cannot rush into building things and spend enormous resources if we are not able to reach the end point that we want to reach. And I'm thinking, how many different variables, factors that we need to incorporate so that we can have an effective risk management framework that everyone can benefit from and everyone can use across nations.
Okay. First, okay, I felt from the beginning of my research a big responsibility. So I knew that maybe nobody will use my language, but there was also a possibility that everybody will use my language. So I didn't know. So I had to make sure that it is, first of all, technologically secure. I spent, let's say, 12 years to build a parser for my language, to be sure that it was exactly the thing that we need. Something that I am sure that is computable, something that I am sure that can go, that can scale, at the global level, etc. So, now I am building a prototype with only one function, the function of data curation. In some months, the prototype will be finished, and currently it works in IEML, of course, but IEML is automatically translated in French and English. It's only 2 languages. In principle, it should be all the languages, or at least all the main languages that are used on Earth. So we will need some linguists to translate all this, and also I will need some people to help the users to build the subjects, the topics, the facts, the theories that they need to build for their users. Some people that can help people. Basically, it's not, let's say, it should be a small team or some group of small teams. And I think that it will be much less costly than going to the moon. And maybe it will be more useful, I don't know, because augmenting human collective intelligence will have many beneficial effects. So, yes, this vision implies the whole global cyberspace and the whole global culture, but it should be done step by step, securely, in an agile way, if you want, not designing everything from the beginning, but trying some new function, testing it. Yes, it works. We can go a little bit further and so on. If we want that it is very solid, we have to be very careful. But we have to go ahead, of course. I think that the fundamental research is done now. The structure of the language, the dictionary, the test of the first function, that is data curation, it works. It works. So we should go very cautiously to the next step now. Probably it should be supported by a foundation or by a consortium like the World Wide Web Consortium, or maybe by an alliance of, I don't know, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, or something like this. if they want, maybe they can feel threatened also by this. But they can be smart also, I don't know. But in a way, and there will be also a blockchain aspect to all of this. We will have to register and so on. It's very complex at institutional level. How to make this happen? It's not a simple problem. So I will stay with my eyes wide open, with the vision of a global public service, and we will hopefully, with people like you and other people that will help to spread the word, something can happen. And we will stay in touch, and I will send you the prototype when it will be issued.
No, great. And I hear your point on this, because at the rate technology is changing, no individual or entity across nations can, do something as big as what we are trying to achieve. The vision that we all have, to develop such systems that every individual across nations can use and benefit from. That is not something that an individual and an individual or an independent entity can do on its own. We need a shared organization, like you just talked about, for collective knowledge and talent sharing. Because if we talk about IEML itself, you said the French right now is only in French and English, and there are so many languages all across nations.
Of
So
course.
that itself will require a huge collaborative effort from across
Exactly,
nations.
exactly,
That
exactly.
itself.
We
So
cannot improve collective intelligence without using collective intelligence.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. So the shared organizations, I think, it is the way to go. And we believe that global NGO collaboration will help us not only reduce, if we talk about our efforts, that it will not only help us reduce cost for our initiatives, but also help us reduce the time that is needed for completion of projects or initiatives. Each of these project, I mean, what I would like to do to achieve the risk management framework that can manage both independent and interdependent, interconnected, interdependent CGS risk, that means cyberspace, geospace, space risk, that is going to take years, and it is going to require so much effort. So do you, and same is for yours. I mean, what you have developed is going to require huge efforts and collaborative efforts from all across nations. So do you see new ideas being generated and explored by collaboration and cooperation of individuals and entities across NGIOA? If we talk about IEML language, where could it go? I mean, it is a meta language, but what else can be built on that?
Okay, so you know that the international collaboration already exists in academia, in the scientific endeavor. In principle, there is no, I don't know, American science and Pakistani science and Spanish science. There is science, that's it.
Science is science. You are right about that.
Okay, or even more for the mathematics. Mathematics, it's the same thing everywhere. So we are not going from nowhere. Okay? So I think that one of the first fields where this can be done is the academic field, categorization of research papers, of research conversation, so science, new kind of publication in cyberspace. And I have already contacts with people that are very interested, that are managing scientific journals online and so on. So it will, it can be already useful in, let's say, 2 or 3 years. So it can be relatively fast. And once it has shown useful in one particular field, you can generalize to other fields. I think that I'm not afraid of the, let's say, possible obstacles. I think that it will be relatively fast once it has been proved useful. This is the really important step. Once people say, okay, it works, okay, we are going to do it. And then there will be more people who will collaborate and we will go ahead.
Yes, that is the way to go, because there is not a single initiative or effort that would be, achieved successfully without overcoming obstacles or, overcoming risk and managing risk. And the act of managing risk effectively so as to, from our perspective, so as to achieve security in cyberspace, geospace, and space and achieve global peace is itself a powerful motivator that will create a new world, a better world that can be a stepping stone to the space age. So the capacity of individuals and entities across nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia to cooperate intellectually in risk management, security, and peace is a powerful motivator. And as our society becomes more and more knowledge dependent and risk conscious, this collective ability becomes of fundamental importance. I think it's very important, and it's vital to understand, among other things, how these collective risk intelligence processes can be expanded by using blockchain, by using IEML, and how we can take the next step. That is going to be one of the keys to success for not only digital global age and to have global peace, but also a stepping stone to the space age. So what cognitive powers of collective intelligence do you see emerging if we are effectively able to integrate all these powerful technological platforms?
And here I think that we still don't have pronounced the word education, but it's very, very important. So I think that the next generation of students will have to, let's say, will have to be trained to surf on streams of data. They have to, they need deep cultural, deep critical thinking, deep ability to organize data and to extract knowledge from them, deep ability to collaborative learning. So we have to think all these things together, and we have to organize the education on the new, in the last centuries, people were reading on paper and writing on paper. In the future centuries, we are going to read on data flows and write on data flows. It will be the new raw material. We are going to give shape to it. Okay? We are going to communicate in a stigmatic way by interacting on this same sea of data. Okay? This will be the new way to interact. And I think that when we will be able to convey this new vision of intellectual collaboration into the core of education, we will have made a great step forward.
Yes, definitely. And yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, and it will, yes, it will be, it will advance the goal of peace. But I don't want to sound too much utopian. There is a mean strike in the human species. We have bad instincts, we have aggressivity, and so on. I'm not sure that we will achieve a world completely at peace without conflicts and so on. Maybe it's impossible, but at least we can foster a culture of collaboration, collective intelligence, reflexivity, critical thinking, compassion, and our conflicts should be resolved at the symbolic level instead of shedding blood. That's we have to how do you say this? Yeah, le mot, je sais plus.
No, I hear you on that.
The word in English. Well, it's going beyond the immediate impulse and transforming this impulse into something higher. Of course, we will always have these bad impulses.
Yes.
But we have to learn how to transform them.
Yes, very true. No, you're right that we will never be able to achieve a totally risk-free environment because competition and conflict will always remain. So perhaps a closing question for us to ponder is how do these new kinds of collective human intelligence help us understand what it means to be an accountable human in the first place and what our role as humans on the earth is. I think and I hope that this approach to thinking about collective human intelligence can help us to understand not only what it means to be individual humans, but what it means for us as humans to be part of some broader collective humanity system. So having said that, what would you like to tell our global viewers and listeners, especially the young minds who are, still in the high schools and colleges, who are very passionate about making a difference, about leaving behind a legacy? A lot of them are not driven by money. They want to solve the problems. I get emails from across nations, students from high schools who ask me what they should do. And I tell them that find a problem that matters for you and your nation and try to solve it. That is the biggest contribution that you can give to the humanity and to make the world a better place. So what would you like to tell our global viewers and listeners, especially those young mind?
First, we have to recognize that we don't come from nothing, that there was previous generations that were building new knowledge, developing ideas. We have inherited a lot of very important ideas, concept, knowledge from our predecessors, and we should recognize and accept this. Then we should continue. We should add to the knowledge. We should build better institutions. We should build better tools. We should develop mutual understanding, compassion, and so on. Personally, I think that, but maybe it's just my point of view, reflexivity is the key. We should be able to see ourselves individually and collectively and understand what we are doing together. If we build a civilization based on reflexive collective intelligence, I think that we are going toward the right direction. Reflexivity at the global scale, at the local scale, at the scale of teams, at the scale of networks, conversations, and so on. Being able to observe our own cognitive processes. This is the basis of learning individually and collectively.
Yes, very true. No, excellent advice. And we all know that none of us knows everything, but we all know something. So the capacity of individuals and entities across nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia communities to evolve towards higher order integration and performance through collaboration and innovation is a need of the time. So thank you so much, Professor Pierre, for participating in Risk Roundup today. We appreciate your thoughtful insight on collective human intelligence and your efforts towards developing the IEML meta language, which is, from my assessment, is going to prove a very important tool to take the next step in the semantic web that we are trying to develop, and the reflexive intelligence that each individual need to have to be able to evolve in our evolutionary journey towards intelligence, collective intelligence. So our global viewers and listeners would benefit tremendously from the information you provided on collective human intelligence, its benefits to the society and its future. So even if a single individual or entity can come up with an idea to explore collective intelligence based on the discussion we had today and based on the understanding they've got because of what you shared about IEML, this risk roundup dialogue has been of service, and we thank you for that.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Wonderful. So as humanity's relationship to knowledge and information changes, it is important that we evaluate security risk rising because of the profound implications to the future of the collective human experience and endeavors in cyberspace, geospace, and space. Risk group cybersecurity, geosecurity, and space security risk research centers are created for this very reason, to identify, evaluate, and manage the risk facing NGIONCGS, that means nations, its government, industries, organizations, and academia in cyberspace, geospace, and space. We at Risk Group believe that risk management, security, and peace, they walk together hand in hand. Though security is related to management of threats and peace to the management of conflict, risk management is related to management of security vulnerabilities as well as management of conflict. And it is not possible to conceive any one of the three without the existence of the other two. All three concepts fit into each other. We believe that the security we build for ourselves is precarious and uncertain until it is secure for everyone across nations. Tradition becomes our security, so if we build a culture of managing risk effectively, it will lead us to security, and security will lead us to peace. Let's manage the existing and emerging risks together. For more information on the risk roundups, to watch the risk roundup videos, or hear the risk roundup podcast, please go to riskgroupllc.com, and do not forget to subscribe and share. Until next time, I'm Jayashree Pandya, host of Risk Roundup, signing off. See you next time. Thank you.